it continues to be, I would say, the most visited grave here in the cemetery. Throughout this, I've been in touch with Peter and was delighted to know that the restoration coincided with publication of a book, and that's what I'm going to pass the baton on to you and tell us now about the book and tell us a little bit about George's life. And he also has fascinating details about George's burial and the monument. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to Anne and to Greg and Nick Warner and all the team for doing this amazing work, coming here year after year and seeing the condition of the area. It really cried out for some help, so I'm just delighted that it looks so good now. And to Romani for taking care of the cemetery for all this time. It's really looking much, much better than I've ever seen it, so that's just delightful. A little bit about George Reisner. So born in 1867 in Indianapolis, came to Harvard in the class of 1889, and then from there went on to Berlin for a postdoc for 3 years. But none of this had anything to do with Egyptology. He was originally an Assyriologist, studying Akkadian Biblical Hebrew, and he thought that's what his career would be. But it was in Berlin that he met the famous Egyptologists Adolf Ehrman, Kurt Zeta, and others, and caught the bug. So he came home to Harvard, taught for 1 year. There was no money to keep him. And then from Ehrman and Borchardt, he got an invitation to come to Cairo to be part of the international team publishing aspects of the Cairo Museum collection. So he did this. He thought he'd stay for 1 year, and he ended up staying for about 40 plus years. It was here that he met the American philanthropist Phoebe Hearst, and she was looking for archaeologists to do work for the University of California, Berkeley, all over the world, and she chose Reisner. He had 3 different job options at the time, and he chose to become an archaeologist and take a right turn in his career, and the rest is history. So he lived at a place called Harvard Camp up at the pyramids for pretty much the rest of his life. After Phoebe Hearst bowed out, 1899 to 1905, he had to scramble, and he created the Harvard University Boston Museum of Fine Arts Expedition. And that's the team that he directed for the rest of his life. So they lived at Harvard Camp behind the 3 pyramids at Giza. They worked at 23 different sites over more than 40 years, not just in Egypt, but also in the Sudan. Many, many publications, countless articles, fluent Arabic, so he had his finger on the pulse of politics as well as archaeology, and made it through 2 wars, not all the way through World War II, unfortunately. By the 30s, he was going blind, but he kept on working, and he sent his wife and daughter home when World War II broke out, and then ill health finally claimed the last year of his life. He was essentially bedridden, and he died at the pyramids. It took a while to organize all of this, and in fact, some of his team were somewhat upset that the gravestone still wasn't ready long after he'd been buried here. But eventually they found this stone, which was actually the template or the inspection stone or the model stone for restoration work on the Asr al-Aini bridge. And so they got it cheap. There was a special deal, and they were able to get this, and they thought it was solid and hard and reminiscent of Reisner, who had a kind of solid and hard figure himself. So that's why this is here. And there's a nice inscription in front there, which you can kind of come up and read as well. And to close, I thought from the biography that's come out on his life, I thought I just might read half a page on what took place right here in 1942. He died on June 6, 1942, and was buried shortly thereafter. On Sunday morning, American Minister Alexander Kirk arrived at 9 a.m., followed by Hajj Muhammad Salam, Zaki Saad, Abdul Munaim Abu Bakr, and Charles Watson. The English undertaker came in the afternoon with 4 assistants and a hearse. Floral bouquets appeared from many quarters, and by 3:45, the funeral procession, consisting of 11 cars, 7 for the workmen, all but 4 cemetery guards up at Giza, they all set out from Harvard Camp. Reisner descended from the Giza Plateau, the only true and permanent home he had known all his life, one final time. More than 100 people attended the ceremony, among them a representative of King Farouk, Sir Miles Lampson, Alexander Kirk, Fuad Abaza Pasha, Etienne Drioton, Walter Bryan Emery, Rex Engelbach, Mahmoud Abdallah El Arabi, and Dr. Wilson. Missing, of course, were Reisner's wife and daughter back in the United States, who had last seen their husband and father on June 28, 1940. American University in Cairo President Watson gave a eulogy, followed by prayers. Then came a short speech in English by Mahmoud Syed, that's one of the Reyes family of Reisner's team, on behalf of all the men. The body was lowered into a simple, as yet unmarked grave, accompanied by 2 wreaths on behalf of his wife and daughter, not far from the entrance to the cemetery, in which several of his own friends already lay at rest. Reisner's oculist, Dr. Max Meyerhof, called the ceremony simple and dignified. But Brian Emery noticed that the bedrock here was quite high up, and as the coffin was lowered, he murmured to Rex Engelbach, sotto voce, "Surface burial." 40 of the men, some of them now white-haired, stood in front of the open tomb and cried bitter tears. Meyerhof observed that we all regretted deeply the death of this clever, upright, and most valuable American. Reyes Mohammed Syed wrote, "After we buried the body, everybody shook hands with the deputy director and with the ladies. We then returned to the pyramids." Thank you all for coming today. It's a delight to see so many people in the cemetery here and to celebrate the great hard work of Nick and Greg and Ann and everyone who was involved in putting this together. Thanks for coming. Coffee is served. Tea is served.
Thank you. Well, another cup of tea might be in order, but Greg is ready to take you around and show you some of the